The thing that sold you our mom.
The thing that sold me the most on your mother, and this doesn't get shared. Doesn't get shared with too many people. Does it?
No, this is
All right.
for us kids.
Well, you know how I felt about my mother. I kind of saw that you guys felt the same way about her that I had felt about my mother. And a woman like that can't be all bad.
But kids can kind of be blind to.
And I liked the fact of of working working with the challenge of bringing up kids. And I think I was a little bit in that. Your mother was not a easy read.
I'll give you that.
I mean, she's not. I'm not saying she's stupid.
No. But she's not sending signals to just.
But she has this thing about she sends what she wants to send,
She's a woman.
and she's constantly got to be right in her own mind.
She's a woman.
But anyway, I married her anyway.
So, how did you choose your career, and what was your favorite part of your career? I think we kind of covered this. You didn't sound like you were. It wasn't a very favorite career to you.
I liked what I did at Martin Memorial.
Okay.
I ran the central supply, but I helped out. I even helped out in surgery.
So you liked making a difference.
Gloves and everything on. Held people down as their legs were being set.
You said Martin Memorial was 40 beds. Yeah. How big was Mercy?
140.
No kidding. That big difference.
147.
I didn't realize they were that much difference in size. How many beds? I'm sorry, real quick. How many beds was Berrien General?
40.
Berrien General?
Oh, Berrien General. I don't know. It was quite a bit more.
Was it bigger than Mercy?
Oh, it was 300 and something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
so you were moving up as you took new jobs. Essentially, I mean, your same role but bigger hospitals, right? Okay, so how'd you end up? You were in Central Supply in the Air Force, right?
Yeah.
And so is that how you? I mean, you continued that as a career when you came out of the Air Force?
That was the first job the first job I had was at Gelsonider's, stocking supplies.
Oh, I forgot. I remember you telling us about that.
At Gelsonider's.
And that was like a department, or well, not really a department store, but early.
Yeah. Then I had to go back to the Cleveland clinic for another operation on my back.
Oh, and lost the job at Gelsonider's when you were at surgery, or?
Yeah. And when I came back, I got the job at Martin Memorial.
Okay. How old were you then?
Oh, God. Let's see. I went in service at 18, came out at 22, 23.
And you told me the story about the guy,
24.
your roommate, took your weekend leave money. Was that when you were getting ready to go out of the Air Force?
Yeah.
When that happened? I remember that.
Yeah.
So Central Supply wasn't as much a choice as it was the extension of what you knew, and
well, it was an additional thing because I got to work with patients and not just.
So when you were doing it in the military,
supply for military aircraft.
So you weren't as exposed to other things as you were at the hospital.
No.
When you're in the military, it's more limited. What made you successful at work?
I don't think I was successful.
Okay, so let's talk about that first. So why would you say you weren't successful?
I just don't feel like I was.
How do you measure success?
I look back. Where does this go?
It's just
Just
discussion.
between us?
Well, it's video. I don't have to share it. I can cut it up and share the good parts and not
I
share.
know. I don't care who you share it with personally, but
It's for me. It's more about being able to go back and look at this and.
I felt all along. First of all, I wanted to play Major League Baseball. I wanted to be a football coach. I felt I wanted to be a psychiatrist. But I didn't want to go to school. Give me the books and I'll teach myself.
And today, that's much more possible than it was when you were that age.
Well, most of them are taught that way anymore, it seems.
Well, they're still formally educated, but it's less difficult to get a leg up.
I liked to solve problems. I like working with kids, but I also I hated it when someone always said 1 and 1 is 2. I say, how can you prove to me that every time 1 and 1 is together is 2? That's not true.
It is true. I remember you trying to teach me that it wasn't true.
It's not true.
It is true.
You could have one person and two people, but that doesn't have to mean there's 2 people there. There could be 2 tremendously opposite people.
This is why you
2 opposites don't combine to be 2.
1 and 1 is 2 as mathematical representation of what is always accurate.
See, I don't like that. I'm not worried about accuracy in mathematics. I'm worried about accuracy in the mind.
The problem with not being worried about accuracy, scientific and mathematic accuracy, is that's how we measure reality.
People expect that to be.
This is why you like, I can't think of the guy's name. Who was the guy that wrote, oh jeez, it escapes me. He wrote a book and you loved it, and I have seen interviews with this guy, and he's the biggest moron on the face of the earth as far as I can tell. But you loved his book, and if I can think of his name, hang on. And it goes along these same lines. He was appropriating words and using them for other purposes that made it confusing for the public.
Oh well.
Hang on.
Trudeau, Prime Minister of France. Churchill.
No, older guy wrote a book about existentialism or that kind of stuff. You'll know as soon as I can think of it. I'm trying to look it up here.
It might have been a phase I was going through.
That could have been, but it was a book you read. Let me look it up real quick. God, I'm just drawing such a blank here.
I go through phases.
He's an Indian guy.
Gandhi?
No, not Gandhi. more current. Um,
Gandhi was pretty current. His knowledge about what was going to happen was pretty good.
well, but this guy is more of a contemporary, recent. Hang on, give me
PJ, initials PJ.
Deepak Chopra.
Huh?
Deepak Chopra.
Who?
Deepak Chopra.
Oh, yeah.
I knew you'd remember who it was if I could think of his name.
Well, I don't know whether I really liked him so much as it was something that was popular at the time, and I used it for conversational piece to find out.
That I believe more. That
to
makes
get,
more sense.
To get information from somebody.
Or to stimulate conversation. Yes, that makes more sense. I saw an interview with him and Richard Dawkins, and Richard Dawkins was exasperated with his misuse of terminology. And anyway,
Well, that's probably why I used it, because I was kind of exasperating at the time.
Well, and you love to challenge people. The whole why is 1 and 1 always 2 is a perfect example of that. That's what made me think of it. Okay. What did you believe about yourself that helped you become successful and deal with hard times?
I just goes back to my mother. I loved myself. I knew I could be successful if I really wanted to be. I'm not really who I seem. I would have been a lot more successful if I'd had somebody. I could have made a good general manager in baseball.
You made a good baseball announcer too. So passionate, so enjoyed it so much. And you were intimidated by your speech not being perfect when you get excited, especially. But I think that would have made you that much more adorable, like with Harry Carey, you know.
Yeah.
You're literally that kind of character. You're so into baseball. I just think that would have been a great place for you. And I remember you coaching the Mount Vernon Colts. You know, I remember coming down there and getting beat up by all those guys with shoulder pads on and stuff because I was way smaller than them. But I remember how much you enjoyed that too.
Mm-hmm.
So what times in your life truly tested your mettle? You know, what did you learn about yourself by dealing or not dealing with tough times?
Death of my grandfather year in.
What happened when he died, you mean?
But they called me home from the service because Grandpa had lost these. He had 2 kids, Mom and Uncle Kurt. Uncle Kurt had died earlier. And I was the oldest grandchild, and I adored my grandfather. My grandfather was to many people was a mean old man sometimes.
Grandpa Urian?
Yeah.
I never met him.
No, you didn't. And when I got called into the commanding officer's office, and says you can't load that plane. You have to go home. Your grandfather's going in the hospital and he's dying. So I got the next plane out, went home. But what was the question?
What really tested your mettle, and what did you learn?
The death of my mother, seeing my mother suffer after Dad died. I don't know. There's so many things. Watching Mom.
But by the time Grandpa and Grandma died, though, you already knew who you were, and I mean, what tested your mettle as a young man, and what did you learn from, like, with Grandpa dying, Grandpa Urian? You know, how did that change who you were and what you
Well,
thought
what
about?
tested my mettle mostly when I was a young man was the fact that on a football field there was other people just as tough as you are, and you had to do some things. And you try to run 2 miles after football practice in pads, you got tested a lot. But everybody else was doing it, so you thought you had to do it. I don't know whether I ever really got tested.
Not like you could have been challenged. Do you think you had the ability to overcome much bigger challenges?
Yeah, and well, that kind of sounds like I'm bragging, but yeah,
Well,
I
no,
did.
I think in that context, I just as you said that, I'm thinking about there were times in my life when I felt like I was at rock bottom and there was no way I could
Yeah,
overcome it. But then when I came out of it, I thought, man, that was so little to be so torn up about, or
yeah,
so and I think from that I got the ability to overcome bigger challenges as well.
right. I remember Ron telling me about some of the things that he went through, and when I was in the service, his dad being
Oh, and he
dad,
wasn't in the service; he was at home.
oh, he couldn't go in. He had a problem in his head. They wouldn't take him, and but his dad drank a lot. I don't think there's anything that could have been worse than having somebody in your family who was an alcoholic.
I've seen friends go through it.
Because the first thing I would want to do is throw my arms around them and say, "Why are you drinking?"
Well, and I have no concept of it because there was no. I mean, we weren't like a super touchy feely family, but there was no holding somebody at arm's length. If you were doing something wrong, it came out, and there was not drinking was never a thing, you know, not in
Well,
our house. I remember mom buying you a 6 pack of Olympia beer and throwing 3 of them out like 6 months later.
yeah, yeah, you're right.
Did you drink much in the service?
No,
You know, what was your deal when you got weekend time? You just went out, had steak, and
one out. We had maybe I had a scotch
oh,
neat,
but
neat,
one drink, not
and then we went out and we usually had steaks or fish. We were in northern Michigan.
so that. Oh, that's right. You were in the UP. So that brings me to a question that's not on here that I've always kind of wanted to ask. Did something happen driving that made you not like to drive? Is there some event that, like, did you run over a dog or something and not want to drive after that, or is you just never were fond of driving? I'm thinking there's not a significant event because you're not. Excuse me.
Well,
It's not like a light bulb.
I think my dad tried to teach me to drive.
You think too early, or you just
Well,
weren't
I
ready?
was 14 or 15. When you get your license at 16, he wanted to teach me ahead of time.
Well,
And
but see, to me, at 14, I was over at Wayne Ball's house. We were driving on the farm all the time,
yeah,
driving the tractor and the cars around the field.
well, I drove a tractor when I went to work on my grandfather Silverwood's farm every year. But the tractor's different,
Yeah, much different.
and but Grandpa Silverwood was not
You talking about your dad or your grandpa Silverwood?
No, my dad. He was not a good teacher of people who didn't want to learn something. I would I couldn't understand why they had to have speed limits and everything else. I never still don't understand
Well, because you would never speed. I understand why they have speed limits because if it was me, even today, I would go as fast as I could possibly go, and I'd be mad at for somebody for pulling out in front of me. So, what three events most shaped your life?
How do you mean that?
I guess what three events do you think were the most important in shaping who you were or who you are?
Television, watching baseball on television, watching people play baseball, softball, basketball, football.
But television is not an event. What events? Like what things that happened during your life, not necessarily to you. I mean, it could be
Pitching a no hitter.
doing that yourself.
Yeah.
As a kid.
Being good, making an all-star team.
Gave you more confidence growing as a person.
Well, that came when the meanest son of a bitch in the world, I struck out with 3 pitches. That's when I knew I was good. Not bragging, but
I was just thinking about what. So you were probably little league or Babe Ruth league.
Yeah, little league. And this guy was 2 years older than I was. He couldn't get the batter out fast enough. That I think most of the things that shape me, to make it very simple for you, all has things to do with sports, people, family, or the way my mind worked.
What do you remember about you and Stephanie being born? What do you remember specifically about those? You know, I remember when Drew was born because Stephanie was already. I had 3 sisters, and when we got the call, I was at Grandma Krepp's, and I remember the call coming in, and it was a boy, and I was just like, yes.
Well, I was proud when Stephanie was born.
Do you remember anything? I mean, were there any significant things?
Yeah, I was wondering if Kay was all right.
Well, but you were there, right?
Yeah. I was wondering if she was all right or if she's lying to me.
Telling you she was all right, you mean?
Your mother is what, a professional buffer.
What do you were you scared to be a parent?
No, hell no. No.
You weren't? Not at all?
No. No.
Wow. I mean, I don't have any kids. I'm still petrified of it. Not that I don't want to do it, but
I think the minute your mom and I got married, I became a parent.
Oh, I agree. But were you scared? Did that scare you at all? Taking on kids?
No. And not connection, not any past connections or anything worried me. Mrs. Bartlett got to see you guys whenever she wanted to, and so on and so forth. But no, I didn't worry about things like that. I worried about you guys.
That's
and the effect it had
very
on you
profound.
Guys. Well, I mean, can you imagine being you guys' age and having somebody like me as a father, and having somebody like your mother as a mother, and having my mother, Kay's mother, and Mrs. Bartlett. God, you guys were in heaven. Mrs. Bartlett, my mother spoiled you guys rotten.
Very true. Sorry.
Well, that's all right. You can cry all you want to. I'm a psychiatrist.
What three words represented your approach to parenting and why?
Love. Kids have to have love. Kids need love. Symbolism. You have to set a good example. You have to be a symbol of something that resembles something that the kid would want to be proud of. And the fact that your mother and I always tried to show you guys that we loved each other and were together on our decisions about how to discipline them. I don't remember too much severity in disciplination, but I guess it was sometimes that you guys got disciplined.
What do you when you think about Linda and Karen, or I guess let's do one at a time. When you think about Aunt Linda, how would you describe her?
Aunt Linda's kind of like a mouse. Comes out when she wants to and kind of retreats when she has to. She's my sister. I mean, I love her, but she's very quiet, has a very calming influence on people.
What about Aunt Karen?
Aunt Karen is someone who never was really allowed to show how much of a genius she could be. She's not dumb. She had, but then she has a weird side, and that connects her to people who are like living like with a person who's in the Ohio State University. She loves that kind of stuff.
Oh, just like having a student stay with her, or having a professor stay there, or whatever.
Well,
Or you mean just?
What's her name? What's the girl she lives with's name?
Oh, oh shoot.
Oh, I know, but
Oh geez, you and her used to have long philosophical discussions.
yeah.
Oh come on.
She used to want to try to talk me into going back to school. She even
All I
challenged
can think
me.
of is Denise, and that's not it.
No. Anyway, Karen likes being around those kind of people.
Intellectuals, you mean intellectually stimulating people? I can't find any fault in that. When you think about mom, how would you describe her?
Messy.
Messy. If you go ahead.
Cute, wonderful wife, messy. Kind of immature in a way.
If
She doesn't relate well to a higher degree of. She doesn't realize that we could have more. I mean, it's like I was saying, trying to tell her, okay, what we pay for the television and everything else we've got, that stupid thing. We could eat better. We could be healthier. We could do things. I don't care. Let's go back to 4 channels on the TV.
as long as they have baseball. You know, most of my friends, when I tell them that
I'm 72.
most,
We don't know how much longer. If the doctor's right, I may not. I may be dying right now.
most of my friends can't believe that your TV is 20 inches or whatever that is, and that we grew up with a black and white TV. I was like, we had a 12 or 13-inch black and white TV until we graduated from high school. I'm not even kidding. You know, and my friends are like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah." And that was the only TV in the house. That was, and if you wanted to watch TV, you got to watch what mom and dad were watching. There was no sneaking off to watch a show unless you were doing it at a friend's house. If you had a message for mom that you always want her to remember, what would it be?
I wanted to know never to doubt the fact that I loved her. And I love everything about her, even the messianism. It's very hard sometimes putting a pound of lard into a container set for 2 ounces. But I just wanted her to know that I would want her to remember that I loved her. Totally loved her. No other. There's never been a thought of anything else. Of course, I think she knows that.
What do you mean by a tub of lard and a pound of lard into a 2-ounce container? What?
I look at myself as a fat man. I don't like
okay.
being fat. That's why I've lost quite a bit.
Yeah, you've lost a lot of weight. You look more like Grandpa Silverwood than you have. I never saw a resemblance in you until last, like 3 months ago when I came down, and you've lost enough facial weight that your Grandpa's face was long and thin, and your face is starting to look a lot like his. And the last time I came down, I saw Chet in your face, and I was just like, wow, oh my gosh. I mean, it was just like, you know, it was an obvious thing to me that this is father and son. If you put your picture now next to a picture of him, you'd see the resemblance a lot more than when you were heavier. And I've had some friends. I mean, you know, I've put on some weight, but I've had some friends gain and lose weight drastically to where I didn't hardly recognize them. Excuse me. And you don't think about it when it's a gradual thing. What 3 words would you say best describe who you tried to be in life and how you want to be remembered?
What 3 words? Fair, honest, peculiar.
That is more than appropriate in my mind to have peculiar at the end of that, because you've always been proud to not be a conformist. And I think I probably got that from you. And it's not, the big thing is, despite your pride in not being a conformist, you're not a nonconformist for the sake of being a nonconformist. You're a nonconformist because you believe being part of the group is the wrong way to think. And That I know I got from you. That line of thinking is I just told John this morning, I don't want to be part of your group. I don't want to be part of your church group. I don't want to be part of your bike group. I don't want to be part of any group because the only reason to have a group is to exclude people, and I don't want to be part of it. I can't put it any other way. They eventually a group wants to kick people out or keep people from
You've
joining.
been doing a lot of thinking, haven't you?
It's like that's new. Anyway, 3 words. Okay. When they think about their careers, what do you want your children to focus on?
I hope they focus on what makes them happy. I hope they focus on the fact that and I don't mean, there's a certain artificialness about money. Being happy means up here, knowing that you are achieving something that you want. Then everybody does that. Being able to look yourself in the mirror every day and say, I kind of like myself. That's hard.
At least kind of, yeah.
I don't want my kids to look at themselves as being part of a group as much as being themselves as part of a group.
Very well said. Whether that group is humanity or people that live in Illinois or
Right. Unfortunately,
or Ohio.
some of us
Uh,
live in Illinois.
what have you learned about other people in life? And the qualifier is like trustworthy, kind, or not, mean. You know, what have you learned about people in general? Like probably, I guess in this context, I would say, what would you want to impart to your children and grandchildren?
Oh, well, the hardest thing about life right now is that everything is not as it is. There can be a minister sitting there
Oh, you mean everything's not as it seems?
who has a herd of women off to the side. People are not as committed to who they are, what they should be committed to, as they need to be. And part of that is because of the financial situation that they struggle with all the time anymore. And they get a job, they find out midway through their education, what am I getting an education to do this for? I don't even like it.
Or the education isn't going to help me in my job, or you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pumping gas. You know, if pumping gas is what you want to do it. Be happy. Hopefully, you want to be a doctor, or a lawyer, or a candlestick maker. Of course, now there's only one honest job here. I'm beginning to wonder about doctors and lawyers, but candlestick makers are pretty honest guys.
Probably not too many of them left.
Truthfully, I think you've got to learn to look at yourself and laugh a little bit and say, what do I really want?
Yeah.
What does this textbook
And
say?
And how does this, what I'm doing, how is that helping me get to where I want to be?
Yeah.
That's what so many people get caught up in, trying to make ends meet or whatever, that they're not really focusing on the end goal.
I had a friend, well, he's much younger than I am, who came in to my office and said he was working as he was going to school. And he came into my office and he said, I want to talk to you. He said, what do you think about what I'm doing? So I said, well, what do you think of what you're doing? And he said, I don't like it. I'm studying something that I'm finding out I don't believe in. I said, well, just change. You can always change your, what do they call it?
Your major.
Major. And he did. And then when he graduated, he became a doctor. And he's very successful. Now I know that because people told me that. But oh, by the way, I heard from a guy who played football for me.
You down in Mount Vernon?
Yeah.
What's he doing now?
He wondered. He said, "Is this the Dave Seward that I played football for?"
What is like? So he'd be about my age, maybe a little older.
Well, let's see. Mitchell name was Mitchell Briscoe. He lived in the West End. And he works for the newspaper at home now. But I gave him his first APBA game. And he's really big in that now. So,
How long ago was that?
I gotta go back to the bathroom.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.